My guest today is the owner of Waukee CabinetWorks in Waukee, Iowa. He's built one of the most organized and thoughtful cabinet manufacturing businesses that I've ever been around. That's right, I said cabinet manufacturing only. His company does not install the work they produce, a topic we dive into in depth throughout our conversation. In addition to that, they do several things that small shops usually avoid, including offering several cabinet lines from companies like Fabuwood to complement their custom offerings, and they have some of the best shop drawings in the game for a shop of their size. We also admin the Mosaic Software Users Group together on Facebook, and he's become one of my closest industry friends in the process. To me, this one is a must-listen for any small shop looking to hear from someone who's as put together as anyone I've encountered. I'm happy to have spent some time with my friend, Mr. Jason Balm. And I'll say, too, this is a very momentous day. This is the first day I have not worn a hoodie. We've finally got to the 6 or 8 week period in Minnesota where I can't wear one.
What's the temps up there right now?
Oh, man. Yesterday was like 94, and today it's back down to like the 80s. But you guys had a heat wave, too, didn't you?
We're in the middle of it. I think tomorrow it starts to finally get into the 80s again, but it's been hot. Yeah, for sure.
Do you is your shop able to handle that? Do you have air?
We do. We do have air conditioning. We added that about 4 or 5 years ago, and we don't run it hard by any means. It just kind of takes the humidity out and turn it down every night too. But it's a creature comfort that we wouldn't, I know my Finnish shop wishes they had an air conditioner, but
I see.
That gets a little warm.
Nice. Well, this is awesome, Jason. I'm glad we're doing this. I would love to know, for those who are not familiar with you and your company, just kind of the origin story. I know a little bit, but I don't know the whole story either. What was 20 or 30-year-old Jason like? What were you doing?
My goodness. Well, I'll be honest with you. I moved to a town here north of me, Ankeny, and kind of opened up the Yellow Pages and found a general contractor that I worked for. And I didn't know that I loved construction until that, but I got hired. I remember, I'll never forget, got hired. I think it was maybe $8-9 an hour. And
nice.
I worked there for 2 years. When I left there, I was making $25 an hour.
I see. And what time frame was that?
Even this would have been like 94, 95, somewhere in there. And started doing side work, kind of the typical thing. Met a real estate agent and started doing side work, and just kind of fell in love with the process. And then eventually, I decided to just fully go out on my own, and was remodeling contractor, put on decks, all kinds of stuff, that kind of thing. But always had a garage shop. Always loved, building cabinets or doing projects in the shop, that kind of thing. And then there was even a period where I owned a framing company for a while. I mean, at one point we had like 56. Yeah, at one point we had, I think my highest employee count was 56.
Really?
But that was, looking back on that, there's so many advantages, I think, to being a cabinet shop owner, just because of the bar that you have to hit to get over. But I just remember there at the end, I think we had a year where we did maybe 4 or 5 million. And of course, this was leading into 2008 when things just really,
I was just going to ask, that was probably mid 2000s when this was happening.
Yeah. Got hung out pretty good on a couple jobs. But the big thing that I just didn't understand at the time is your competition in that world is like a guy with a truck and a bed full of nailers and compressor, and like, welcome, you're a framer now, and builders at that time didn't care if you were employing people or hiring, people 1099 or whatever the case was. We tried to do it right, but just didn't make any money. I mean, even that big year that we had, it's like under 100,000, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like substantially. So after that went away, I kind of went back. I always loved trim carpentry as well. So I started focusing on trim carpentry, kind of like my brother does, at this point. But picked up some good builders, always built built-ins. that kind of thing. And, that slowly morphed into an interest in finishing. And mainly that just kind of came from, we built these nice, beautiful built-ins, on a house, and then you'd watch the painter, not to knock painters, new home construction, they pull in, blast that thing with Pro Classic or whatever, and you're just like, oh my gosh, this just looks terrible. So I started taking an interest in finish, and of course, this naturally progressed into, the beginnings of the cabinet part for me were more of a full-time kind of things. I always had customers calling me, do you do kitchens? Yeah, I install them. Have you guys started working with the designer yet? And I would refer out these cabinet showrooms and that I had great relationships with. And when it came time to actually make the switch, I just stopped giving out their name and saying, hey, I'd love to quote your kitchen. So I had kind of a built-in string of business.
And what year was that, would you
Customer,
say? Like 2015-ish?
that really got going. Now it was about 2011, somewhere in there is when really started to kind of transition to like offering cabinets, and then it kind of it really flipped in 2015, somewhere in there, 14, when at that point is when I was still doing trim carpentry, but I was trying to work out of my garage as much as possible. I was really trying to get that built up. And then we got the shop, and next thing you know, we're building cabinets all the time. So is what it is. There's days where I miss the on-site aspect of things, especially the trim carpentry side. But that connection you have with customers, it's weird now. It's been that way for a while now, but it's, when you're a trim carpenter or working in somebody's house, you really get to know people, and they're like friends. I mean, it's really, honestly, that's the core of my core customer base is all built on all that stuff. And now it's like you're in Home Depot and somebody sees you with your shirt, I got your cabinets and love them. And like, I'm so proud and happy that, that you love your cabinets.
But I don't know who you are. Yeah.
I do not know your name.
Yeah, but that's just
makes me feel bad.
I mean, that's just part of scaling, though, right?
It is.
I will say something like that is something that I had to learn too at the beginning of the tooling company. Is at the beginning I knew everybody, right? And quickly I didn't, and I kind of felt bad, but that's the nature of scale. You just can't.
It is. Yeah.
Interesting.
Sure.
So Waukee CabinetWorks is what, about 10 years old?
Officially in 2012 is when that started. And here's a little secret most people don't know. There was a Waukee TrimWorks as well that was started at that time.
I see.
Because I was still, I was trying to brand.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. But
interesting.
Just never pushed it.
Yeah.
But
interesting. And so give us a snapshot of the company today. How many employees? How much space do you have? What kind of volume do you do or strive to do?
Sure. Yep. So right now we're at 8 total. I've got a full-time operations manager and guys in the shop. I got another engineer that helps me out with drawings and bidding jobs and that kind of thing. And we're right size for us. We're not super huge. We try and shoot for that I'd say 1.8 to 2.5 range for us. I think we're probably capped about that. I mean, the only thing that would change that number, I have this argument actually with my operations manager all the time, because throughput in the shop, sometimes you get a mix of kitchens that are 10, 12, 15, 20, 30,000. And then, every once in a while you get 100,000, 150. But, I've always said it's like if our stream of work, was actually these larger projects, I mean, the volume would shoot up, even with our existing staff, we would do well. So sometimes just like the projects that are coming in is what kind of drives that. But we kind of hover around that 2 million a year mark would probably be the average for us.
Do you have an ideal project size? Like if you could just pick and choose, what do you think the sweet spot is for you guys?
I would say the ones that fall in between 30 and 50 for us. I mean, those are great ones. It just feels like there's enough to them. There's enough meat on the bone that you can really kind of take advantage of the efficiencies that you've got built into your shop and that kind of thing. But it's not just so large that it's just like phased out and you're having to, kind of manage a lot of aspects and ordering and receiving and checking all this stuff in and that kind of thing. At the same time, I don't mind the small projects either. We still don't turn down small projects. I mean, we got a shop minimum that we charge. We get a lot of people that walk in the showroom and they've, like, hey, can you cut out this center panel on the door for glass? And I'm like, we technically will do it, but we just tell them our minimum's 525, $525. If you feel like that's worth it, we're happy to do it. But and if it goes up past an hour, it's more expensive. So it's just one of those things, but that's helped stop some of the little things, but we don't turn them down because we'll just use them as filler. I'll never give a commitment to people on cheaper or smaller jobs as far as time goes. I'm like, listen, I'll put it in the hopper. It might be done in a couple of days. It might be 3 weeks. It's just when we get time, nice little filler at the end of the day or the beginning of the day, or if something, goes on. I like having those little dinky projects.
That's a good way to
bother me at all.
That's a good way to handle it. I've never really thought about, instead of just saying no, giving people the kind of open time frame option where we'll do it. We just can't commit to the time frame.
We never commit on the cheap ones.
Interesting.
Or on the lower price ones.
Yep.
So
when did you implement that small minimum you have now?
I think once we got the showroom, because we started getting these
the walk-in traffic
just like, we had people come in here with just the crustiest looking drawer boxes. Hey, can you fix this? Or that kind of thing. And the hardware store here in town, because they know we stock a bunch of different hardware, and I've got it's fairly organized, but I can't tell how many times people come in, they need a rear mount bracket for a epoxy guide, or something like that. Or, hey, my clip broke on this, do you have that? And sure, we take care of them. I always tell the showroom people that, don't turn those things down, because if you treat them right, you never know.
Yeah.
They could tell their neighbor, or maybe they need a kitchen next year, so it's all about those relationships and to the furthest extent possible, help them out. Don't kill yourself bending over backwards. But,
right. Yeah. It's not about that particular slide or whatever. It's about the future. It's about talking to others. It reminds me, I was at the first time I ever met Chris Hendrickson, I was at his showroom on Marco Island, and about halfway in, an older lady walked in and needed a hinge, right? My hinge broke. And it took them 15 minutes to figure out what hinge and what to do. And I asked him, I said, is that common? He said, all the time. Everyone on the island knows we're here. We do that stuff all the time. And I said, do you feel like that interferes with business? And he said, no, I feel like it's the opposite, right? Everyone knows we're here to help, and I feel like we get business because of that. Do you feel the same way about that? Is that why you handle them the way you do?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. And that's why I don't like turning down work. I see some shops that are really good with their, what do you want to call it? Boundaries, try and stick within
higher minimums or whatever to
higher minimums, or even just what they sell. Like, oh, we don't build that, or we don't do that kind of thing. I will still take, some cockamamie stuff from time to time, only because just from all those years of being a trim carpenter and being able to my whole goal is not to say no to a customer. This is really what I try and do.
Do your guys ever look at you and say, really, you said yes to that one?
I do take it easy on them sometimes. Yeah, and they have, for sure. It's like, what are you doing? I'm about ready to drop a gang build inset job on them here that I know for a fact is going to have them thrown for a loop.
Do they know that's coming yet?
They know it's coming, but they also know who drew it, and it's like, let's just try and Frankenstein this thing as much as possible. Kind of a deal. Yep. So,
well, it'll
be a fun one.
Speaking of your team, let's talk about that for a second. So, you've been able to develop some pretty talented people. How do you approach hiring, training, and how do you keep that talent around for the long term?
Well,
or try to.
For me, what's the best way to put this? I've always tried to look at my guys as they're in many ways, they're more important than the CNC. They're more important than the shop itself. Like, without them, everything just sits there. You know what I mean? It's it's them that allows me to vacation or have time off or whatever the case is. So I always try and put them first as much as possible. Uh, we don't offer a lot in the way of what I would say, just killer benefits. I try to, pay them a rate that would, make it tough for someone to come in and snipe them, that kind of thing. Not that we're in that kind of market, but
Hmm.
I don't want them looking. I want them happy,
Yep.
that kind of thing. I used to be a big stickler on start times and that kind of thing. But as time's going on, everybody that's been with me has been with me at least 3 years now at this point, at a minimum. I trust them 100%. If they need to come in at 8:30, I know they already know what has to get done. So they'll put in the time in the afternoon and work later if they need to, or they'll do what needs to be done, and
Hmm.
just try and treat them as best I can. Take them out for lunch at least once a month,
Sure.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Get everybody together and go out to lunch. Um, just, just try and make it a fun place for them
And
as much as
I'm
possible.
guessing, just because you and I know each other well now over the last 4 or 5 years, but do you feel like your level of communication and having your act together on drawings and timelines and projects, do you feel like that eases that on your people? Because I feel like when the environment is a little chaotic with that, even though you have the best intentions and you treat them well, it's hard to be comfortable. Do you feel like that's a big part of that retention too?
I think I would have to imagine that comes into it, and this is coming from a point of, even though I love being a geek on drawings and all that stuff, we're far from perfect. We still
Of
have like
course.
some cockamamie stuff that goes
Yep.
on, that kind of thing. Um, you know, I'm I mean, I've always told them to. I mean, I never blame them for anything either. Like a lot of times, there'll be little mistakes that happen. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I mean, here's one that just happened. We did a project for my bank, and we were trying. It was something I was kicking out quick, which is my number one rule. I hate knocking stuff out fast. I was leaving town, and I wanted to make sure I had it ready for them, on Monday while I was going to be gone. And there was an L panel that was supposed to get pre-assembled, and it didn't. And even though it was on the drawing, it wasn't on the assembly app, but it wasn't all like it just wasn't done well. But it got shipped unassembled. Of course, the installer that was doing it was like, "Well, this isn't put together," and like, "Oh my gosh, you don't have tools to take care of this
Yeah.
there on site." You know what I
Yep.
mean? But I always look at it like that's my fault because I just didn't have everything in front of them that they needed to ensure that it just didn't
Yep.
happen.
Because
But
of the timeline. Yeah.
correct. Yep. Correct. Yep. Correct.
Let's since we're on this kind of organization topic, uh obviously a Mosaic user. Outside of Mosaic, what softwares, what tools are you using to communicate, schedule, and keep track of everything?
Sure. I mean, again, this has been an area. It's been a mix. We've looked at some of the different higher end, kind of CRM type packages
Hmm.
and things, and just didn't feel like taking the jump. So we've kind of settled into we use OneDrive. I mean, every customer gets a or SharePoint, whatever you want to call it, but every customer gets a folder. Everything goes in there. Drawings, as much communication as possible stays in there. Photos, measurements, all that stuff.
Hmm.
And then, once that job becomes active, we use a software called Build Book is the name of
Okay.
it. We've been using it for 3 years. It's similar project management apps, kind of those typical couple $1,000s a year subscription type things.
Hmm.
And we use that primarily as a way to contain all the communication about a job within a job. So, anything happens, if something gets delivered, the guys make a note. If we, if there's damage or there's an issue or whatever the case is, we put copies of the files from OneDrive because that's kind of our OneDrive we treat as kind of like our database, best way to put it. But we'll put files in there so everybody's got access to cut lists and the shop drawings and the design drawings and all that kind of thing. But it just kind of helps, you know, keep all the communication in a channel, which makes good sense for us. And then we'll use it for some scheduling. We've tried so many different ways on scheduling, to do things. we've just kind of figured out that we're not big enough to really. I mean, we need stuff like that, but it isn't like it's uh, a life or death situation. I don't need to spend $1 million getting set up on something that's all the way through.
Sure. So you
I've
feel
been
like
really interested in the.
so you feel like there's not a perfect scheduling solution out there for a shop of your size?
I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are. Glenn,
Mm-hmm.
and we've talked quite a bit. And, I've had this interest in AI and stuff, and some of the things he's doing. It's kind of
It's very cool.
interesting,
Mm-hmm.
honestly.
It is.
Where this could potentially go, down the road, and maybe that's next step down the way. But you start, I know Chris uses Slack and other ones.
Mm-hmm.
I've looked at that before, and never saw it, but you start talking about this AI agent type thing or whatever. That's looking at their Slack channels, they're looking at your emails, maybe. I mean, all this other stuff. You think about all the communication that happens within a company, in a given day, week, whatever the case, just the simple notes that get put in build book for that matter, like, hey, this door's broke, we're going to reorder it. But, like I always tell people, like, my main fear is, like right now we got like 8, 9, 10 jobs going, at various stages. And, sometimes you'll wake up in the middle of the night. It's like, well, wait, did I order the drawers for that job or not? I mean, I can go look, but it's like the thought like still creeps in,
Oh yeah.
like, or the little things that you need to finish up in Mosaic or whatever the case is, you make notes. But just imagine if you had a AI agent, aggregating all this information, where you could ask, it's like, hey, what do I need to be working on today?
Yep.
It's going to remember some of those things that, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But
yeah, I'll be interested to see what the next year or two hold with some of that stuff. What Glenn's doing is very cool, for sure.
Yeah, it is.
I should have him on and talk about that someday. So as a Mosaic user, continuing to go down this organization train, you have by far the most built out, organized library I've ever seen. How many items do you think are in there? And how long do you, how much time do you think you have into it's the way it is now?
I couldn't even, it'd be so hard to put a number on that. I think I got going on Mosaic in 2015, and there's very few days from then until now that I can say I haven't looked at that UI.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest with you, but, it was a slow build. I mean, it was a disorganized mess, for quite some time. And then you start to figure some things out, just needing to have a plan on stuff. But, as far as library size, I mean, I know the one, and I've actually kind of blown that one up a little bit because it got to the point where it was taking like 40, 50 seconds for something to save.
I see.
It just wasn't worth messing around with. Had SKUs for everything. And there was effort. There was reasons behind me wanting to do that, but I've kind of pulled back from that a little bit.
I see.
And then, just this whole transition to 14's made me realize just how many things. I mean, I had like 500 plus material templates, easily maybe 600-700 materials in there. It's kind of nuts.
That is,
but
that's a lot.
Yeah. A lot of stuff. I know when I was on with Michael and Grant on a quick Zoom, and when we were scrolling through the materials and material templates, like, oh my gosh.
I'm sure they'd never seen anything like that either.
Well, yeah, I think there's a lot of users that just kind of roll with what's in there.
Of course. Oh yeah. Tons.
Don't do much, like I don't even know what comes with Mosaic at this point, because it's, everything's been changed.
Basics
on my end. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, if you were to let's say you were to grow a little and want to add another engineer or designer, how long do you think it would take them to get up to speed with what you've got going on? How complex is your setup? I know you have a lot of SOPs and a lot of things to train. Is that a pretty easy process to onboard with what you have now, or is it?
It's easier. I think it would be. I mean, it's gonna. I always tell Nate's my other engineer, and I've always told him. I said, Mosaic, to really do well with Mosaic, I don't know. You have to be interested in it. You can't just do this as a job. I mean, you've got to have like it does well. That's why it does well with like the people that own it, that
Mm-hmm.
own the company, because they're, that like this matters because this is my business and I've got to make sure this thing works. And you got to have that mindset a little bit. But the way I've got Mosaic set up, I've tried my absolute best to kind of eliminate just not eliminate, but lessen the amount of time that a guy's got to be in the product editor, opening up all those risks, overwriting materials, doing this, doing that, where the issues come
Mm-hmm.
from, or just a greater experience level, adding tool paths and that kind of thing. I try and have that work done for them, but for somebody to jump in using our process, I think I don't know, probably a couple months, somebody be pretty proficient, doing it, but you still have to have your head,
Of
on
course.
a
Yep.
swivel,
That's a
that
good
kind of
point.
thing.
I'd never really thought about it, how it's hard to be a mosaic engineer just as a job, because
Right.
there's just so much to, you kind of got to geek out a little bit to like really
Yes,
grasp it.
you do.
Yep.
Yep. To
Shout out
excel.
Nate to for doing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
awesome.
Yep. Yep.
Um all right, my last piece on the organization always wanted to ask you is with the way your shop's set up now and the level of organization you have, how long can you be on vacation before it shows?
I think the answer is going to vary sometimes, but
Mhm.
um, recently I've been gone as much as 2 weeks, and everything's just fine. I could probably, I could probably go further than that. It isn't even the shop because there's weeks. I'm not even going to kid you, Nick. I mean, there's weeks where, and this is a perfect example. I haven't been out to the shop since last Monday.
Mhm.
I mean, of course, I was gone over the weekend, but
Yep.
I haven't been out there since last
And we're
Monday.
recording on a
Um,
Monday, so for those listening, that's a week
yeah,
of time. Yep.
yep. And there's a good chance this week I may not get out there until Thursday at this point, just because of everything that I've got going on. But
Well, that's pretty awesome. I'm not
it
sure
is,
there's a lot of 8-person companies where the owner could say that. It's
yeah.
pretty rare.
Well, I mean, and I have to pinch myself on that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. Like I even though I still work a lot of hours, uh, I don't have to worry about did that stuff get painted, that kind of thing. But I do have the guys. I mean, Nate does a great job out there, obviously. And then my lead uh, shop manager, carpenter, Kenny does an amazing job out there too. I have them kind of send it isn't like I'm fully disconnected. I do ask for like a summary, at least once a day. Hey, here's where we're at, that kind of thing. And I'm always in communication with them as far as checking on things and that kind of thing. But like I said, it's not perfect all the time, but for the most part,
Yep. So
I would be
what would break down first when if you were gone? Is it the customer communication? Is it the feeding jobs to the shop?
feeding, new opportunities. Nate gets buried quick on bids. Some of this stuff does require just some extra owner eyes, I guess, just to make sure that we're hitting,
Hmm.
things are getting bid correctly. Just second set of eyes just to make sure we're catching
I
everything,
see.
when we're bidding projects. So Nate and I communicate about that kind of stuff quite a bit. But the actual production, it kind of runs fine. But,
Yep.
but
That's good.
that I will say this much about having a small crew. And this is why I try my best to take care of them is, um, it's what keeps me up at night or scares me is like one person leaves.
Hmm.
It's like, holy crap. I mean, like Nick, if I lost my painter tomorrow, I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, I've got some outsource options that I would just like roll into real
You'd
quick,
figure it
but
out, but it wouldn't be fun.
no,
Yep.
not at all.
Hmm.
And like the whole process of hiring somebody new is just so traumatic on a business, if you ask me, because, even I've got one guy out there, we like to give him a hard time, but he's like literally the best employee ever because he's just so reliable. But,
It's huge.
it isn't like he's not a rock star walking 40 miles an hour and, production minded super, but he's consistent and that kind of thing. But even losing him, I mean, you bring somebody else, I mean, you got to explain to them where the tools are at, what they're called, the name, how to turn this on, how to turn that off, how to properly shut down the shop. I mean, right now everybody knows how to do that, and I mean, I'm spoiled, so I recognize that as like I've got to take care of them because it is not fun replacing
Yeah,
people.
starting over
There's
is rough for sure.
no. It is.
Let's transition a little bit. You also sell dealer cabinets from lines. Um, what went into the decision to offer that in addition to your custom stuff, and when did you start doing that?
We that got started as soon as it was before we had the showroom. So I'm going to say 2016. I was still installing some things, doing some trim projects still at that time, and we had a trim project where the customer actually bought. I think they were JK, like Chinese cabinets is what it was, and part of the scope was I had to put these things together and install them, and they were crap. I'm not gonna lie, they were terrible. But it got my wheels spinning at that point. I'm like, I wonder if there's not some premium brands out there or
Mm-hmm.
better brands, because the price he paid for these cabinets were like, you got to be kidding me. They were that cheap,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yep.
Um, so I ended up finding Fabuwood is what I ended up finding at the time. And at that time, they didn't sell assembled. It was all knockdown. And you'll think this is funny, but my initial intention with Fabuwood was to, because they had these crappy finger jointed drawer boxes, and you could upgrade to Bloom, but it costs like way more than I could buy them for. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to buy these boxes knocked down. I'm going to replace the drawer with my drawer,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to put my guides in, and then I'm going to put it together. I'm going to make sure I can stand behind it, and out the door it goes. Well, I did that for a couple of years. I even repainted them too to different colors and that kind of thing.
Interesting.
And then eventually that kind of fell off. But um, now we just, the big thing that we do is offering that those brands allows us to not say no to a customer when they come in. If somebody's got a flip house or they've got, whatever the case may be, you don't have to say no. But then once we started dealing with designers have actually embraced this way more than I ever did.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, where they're using it to help a customer hit a budget, where maybe it's a custom kitchen and an island and maybe a master bath, but the downstairs basement gets a Fabuwood vanity, or the laundry gets, those
Yep.
cabinets. And
I see.
we've
So
been
a lot of your
completely,
projects can be a mix where you guys do some custom
yeah,
stuff and they can.
they do a lot of it.
I see. Interesting. So like
Yep. Yeah, I would say more
laundries
often than
and
not.
pantries or things that maybe aren't seen get a
Correct.
interesting. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
But the
And then
original
we've been
idea
dealing
was
with
for
it.
the price point, right? You wanted different
Correct.
price tiers for your customers.
Correct.
I see.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
And what are the current lines that you carry that you?
So we have Fabuwood
Mhm.
is probably our main, what I would call a semi-custom, because that's where they've kind of turned into. We've got another brand out of Minnesota called Legend. They're actually cheaper than Fabuwood. And then we've got another.
How's the build quality? Similar?
Um, honestly, Fabuwood's hard to beat. As much as I hate to admit it, but as a cabinet guy, they're legit cabinets. They really
Yeah.
are.
Nice.
But it's your typical kind of Marilat, vinyl coated, interior, melamine, DTC hardware, that kind of stuff that's going on in there. But, and we got another brand that Jeff actually helped connect me on, because we've always offered, I would call a full import one. But there's a brand that comes out of Omaha called Everlasting.
Yep.
That,
Shout out Jimmy.
Yep. Shout out for Jimmy. I mean, they're not bad cabinets. I mean, they're, anybody can look at them and know that they're, not great, but they're,
Yep. But they're not trying to be either, right? They're trying to.
No. And we always tell everybody, yep, don't oversell them. Don't oversell them. Don't overstate what they are. They know they're picking a budget brand, at that point. They're trying to hit a price point. I mean,
Didn't you say something about that include like delivery to your shop?
Yeah.
Well, really,
yeah.
really cheap?
I don't want to spoil this, but I'm telling you right now, like they show up with 2 people in a box truck and they unload it. Like, it's like the best service I've ever
as part
had
of
in my
as
entire
part
life.
of buying their stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's a delivery fee that gets paid,
Sure.
but it's like, you know what I mean?
And that's
It's like
and that's
they're
what,
driving
2 hours
2
from
guys-
you?
2 hours. 2 hours here, 2 hours back, and they're
They
coming in to
hand
drop
unload
off a
them
kitchen or
into your
2.
shop.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. It's the craziest thing.
That is pretty crazy.
So, yeah. Yep.
What percentage of your business would you say is dealer cabinetry versus your custom stuff?
Well, you actually just knew those numbers. About 25 to 30% is those cabinets.
Okay.
You know, um, Fabuwood probably takes the cake on that one. I know we're the largest Central Iowa dealer of Fabuwood,
Nice.
to the point where the Fabuwood. If you're in Des Moines and you're interested in, or even the surrounding area for that matter, 100 miles out or so, they're going to tell you to call us
I
or
see.
connect us with us. Where they've got us kind of set up where we can add them as a dealer under our dealer
I see.
setup.
That's
So
nice.
just works out better. So they're protecting us a little bit, which is kind of cool. But there's some dealers on the East Coast that sell a lot of Fabuwood.
I'm sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
yep.
Um, do you think you've met obviously a lot of small shop owners through our Mosaic community and others. Do you feel like more people should be offering these things than are?
I do. My whole thing is I learned quickly once I had the shop and the expense of the shop, and especially when we added the showroom, that um, I can't. My customs don't work for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So what am I doing? I mean, I'm in business to sell cabinets and offer those, the kind of the adjacent products that go along with that, and I'm kind of well past the point of feeling I need that pride injection that, oh, look at that, what I built kind of a thing. It's like, look what I sold. It's more what I'm thinking about. So,
That's right.
I don't let them compete with my customs. I don't pretend that they're my customs. I mean, we make it clear it's that brand.
Mm-hmm.
We've never had any major issues that would give me pause, to be honest with you, either. And we've gained customers from it
Mm-hmm.
as well. Just having that interaction with that customer, turns into aunt or uncle or whatever the case is that wants to buy custom. And we're making money on those too.
Yeah. Without
I
tying up the
wish,
shop whatsoever.
correct. Which is, other than, delivery truck or whatever the case is, I do wish other shops would at least open up to it. I know that there's a contingent of people that's like, I build what I sell, that kind
Yeah,
of stuff.
but to me that's just short-sighted a little bit, and
It
there's
is.
obviously
It
people
is.
being successful with that vision, but this is business, right?
Yep.
Obviously we all want
Yep.
to do a good job, but at the end of the day, it's business. Um, do you feel like by having several dealer lines too, do you feel like it qualifies your custom pricing too in people's heads where like they can see kind of the options and because I feel like if someone walks in and gets pricing for custom cabinetry, there's a very good chance if they haven't done any homework that they're going to have some sticker shock, right? And I feel like maybe having those price points from those lines, do you feel like that qualifies your custom number a little better in people's
It
heads and
does.
gets rid of that
It,
shock factor maybe?
I think I mean, it definitely has that effect. I can tell you the other effect it's had is actually an increase in the price that we sell our
Mm-hmm.
cabinets for. You start going down the line of these dealer cabinets, especially if you're looking at, some of what I would call mid-tier or low tier, actually, semi-custom cabinets, you're going to be blown away how much they actually
I
cost.
see.
And you start looking at your own price and like, well, wait a minute, I need to be charging more, that kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, it definitely helps, just they can see, even in our showroom, just walking through, I mean, we try and show everything that we sell in the best light possible, but, uh, uh, it's a noticeable difference. It's easy to explain, the differences
Mm-hmm.
there. But
Well, that's
but we've also tried even with our customs too, just to offer a lower price point. I mean, you start talking about a white mailbox and a white mail or like a matrix, drawer system
mm-hmm.
and a TFL door. You can actually put together a pretty reasonable custom cabinet,
Mm-hmm.
if they're up for that
Yeah.
look. So
Yeah, that's a good point. I never really thought about how those dealer lines could actually help you with your own pricing. But it makes perfect sense, right? Because a lot of us are in our own bubble. We don't know what the market's willing to pay for our stuff. We don't know
correct.
how to price our own things. Um, Interesting. That's a good perspective. Um, all right. I think we need to take a step into, I think, the topic that most people are going to really appreciate hearing you talk about, which is
You don't install anything anymore. You completely got out of installing any product you either make or sell, right? Even the dealer stuff.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
what made you go down that road? When did that start? And maybe tell us about some of the good that's come out of that, and maybe some of the challenges as well.
Sure. Well, I think what started it was had a home show back in like 16 or 17. We had a string of home shows that we did.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just one of those days that, home shows are always like fast process. You got to get it done, get in and get out. But, here's my, at that time I only had a few bays out the shop, but, it was $5,000 a month. And I remember walking out there on a Tuesday morning or a Monday morning, one of the two, and shop's dark, and no one's there. I'm paying for all this equipment, paying for this place. We're down getting hosed, installing a home show that we're not going to get any leads off of. I mean, ultimately it just was, like a mess, but that was the seed of it. Like, is this possible, for me to not do this? And at that time, just from my days of doing trim work, I had a number of guys that we worked with. So for me, the transition went, okay, I'm done. I'm not going to install anymore. To as a soft landing, it was like, okay, we'll suggest these installers.
Mm-hmm.
But I tried to eject myself from it entirely for two reasons. One is I didn't, if I'm going to ship out the cabinets to them, to the customer, I don't want them worried about or holding payment because the install is not done. I wanted that scope just completely removed from my responsibility, I guess is what it came down to. So we did that for a number of years, and then as we started to add other designers and started to use more independent designers, they had their own installers, and next thing you know, I don't know who installs our cabinets now.
That's pretty awesome, though. I mean, that you just are totally
and it's just
removed from that. So are your independent designers helping people with that, like connecting with installers, and they're basically in charge of that entire side of it at this point?
Yeah. And they're all, I think they've kind of followed the same model that, we have. They just, that we were using. I mean, they've got their relationships with installers. I mean, if you're a cabinet designer, I mean, I think that's probably 101, designer school is, you probably should have some relationships with some good carpenters that you can, refer out to a customer or suggest to a customer. But I know most of the designers that we work with, they don't charge for install. So they just let them deal, let the installer bid it to the customer directly.
I see.
They handle it. The whole thing. So they're not even offering a full on package necessarily to most customers.
So they've kind of removed themselves from that in a way too, other than the recommendation.
Yep.
I see.
Exactly.
Did you run into any challenges trying to get out of install? Anything you didn't see coming?
Well, the big one for me was it started to rear its head probably when we were still selling direct to customers. And, there were some jobs where maybe we used a sub that we didn't have as long of experience with, or it was a new installer. We had nothing to do with. The homeowner just found it, Uncle Joe can put them in or whatever the case is. And, and we do our best to make our cabinets as easy as possible to install. But if you get somebody that just doesn't know what they're doing, you're getting phone calls like, well, what's an overlay filler, or what's toe kick, or how do I attach this? And how installers are too, just from the, they're going to blame the designer. It's like, oh, these crap cabinets. I hated losing control over, at least on those direct sales. When you sell somebody a custom kitchen, it's important to that, to me or to probably anybody building the cabinet, you want the customer experience to follow through to the install. Like they've had this great experience designing. They're all excited about it. Here they just have their $50,000 kitchen delivered. And now this, grizzly old installers barking about these crappy cabinets or something. I mean, we never really had that, but I mean, there was times where, things would come up and just people didn't know. And I hated that part of it, but I even made a typical SOP guy here. I made like a 2-page list that went out with every cabinet at that time, suggested installation tips,
Really?
basically just explaining my process on how I install things and how to have a mindset of, just explaining, what's up. Bobo, didn't he? I mean, he had that whole video that he did. I basically had it written down as what I was explaining. This is how you laser the floor, and this is where you should start. So you're not,
I see. Do you feel like that helped, or do you
that
feel
kind
like
of thing.
no one even read it?
It helped. I mean, there was little things that the guys took. Like I've always been poo-poo on using cedar shims. Use a composite shim. I mean, you start putting them on appliance cabinets, and the weight over time they crush, and that's can be an issue. So those kind of things. Getting people warmed up to the idea of like, take a minute and think about how can I install this with as few visible fasteners as possible, instead of just breaking out the 15 gauge or the 18 gauge penner
Going
and
to
just
town.
blasting through stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, do you got any filler or caulk? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or the installers calling and ask for scribe molding. I need 14 feet of scribe molding, or I need 14 pieces of scribe molding, because it's like, guys, have you ever heard of scribing a joint before? Make it look like it grew there instead of like slapping a piece of trim on that to cover up your bad cut or unwillingness to do some planning on the install.
That's just the unwillingness part.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm guessing you would never go back to installing. It's going well.
No.
You love the way it is now. Just completely removed.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the designer part of this a little bit. You have a pretty unique one, kind of a built-in but independent designer, Jenny, right?
Yep.
How did that relationship start? And, maybe some advice for people in your similar spot on how to find people to work with, and, some things you've learned along that process.
Sure. Well, this is, we used to have employed designers, and, all I'll say about that is, it was a good experience. It was a learning experience, but I ended up with just piles of manila folders of jobs that had been quoted and never followed up on. And just, there was no fire under their butts the way that you'd want. When that all kind of ended, our dream was to try and find designers that would be willing to come and rent space from us and run their business out of here. Obviously we want to sell them cabinets, but the idea was to try and do some cost share on the showroom and that kind of thing. But that's really what drove that decision, was that part of it. But the beauty, what it's turned into ultimately now is, we work with a number of different showrooms and designers. We have obviously Jenny, she's what we call a resident designer, where she's, we runs her business right out of our showroom. I would tell any shop that is out there, if you can identify a designer that's at a showroom that's been there a long time. I'm telling you, cabinet designers are like hairdressers in a way. They move shops. Guess what the clientele does? They follow along usually, because they like that relationship. And if you can find somebody that's in a position that could be tempted to, maybe be independent, give them a break, give them a healthy discount, because, all you have to do now is just engineer the project. You don't need to meet with Bob and Susie and help them match their curtains with their countertops and talk about color for days on end, that kind of thing. You're just going to be bidding projects and engineering stuff and selling it, is what it comes down to. So we give her a healthy break, on cabinets.
But it's worth it because she's hungry and the incentive is there, and way more than any employed designer, essentially, right?
Yep, absolutely. And she sells, by far and away more than the other ones we have relationships outside of the business. Just because she's here. The proximity, walk-ins, those conversations that happen. We still generate a ton of leads just ourselves.
Yep. And they're handed off to her, right? You don't even.
They're handed off to her. Yep, they're handed off to her because she's the resident designer. It's kind of the deal that we've put together on that end. It's worked out better than what I could have imagined. I'll leave it at that.
That's awesome. And I think that's a really important piece that people might miss from this is I think there's would be a temptation for a shop owner to say, well, we found that lead. Our brand created that lead. We should do something with it ourselves. And really, it sounds like it's working out better when you don't. Right? When you actually hand that over, a portion of that profit is going to end up going to Jenny or whoever it is. But really, it keeps the heat off of you on the front end and really just to become a manufacturer only. And to you that's worth that break, right?
It is. There's there's certain times, with this new showroom, we've kind of restructured our deal a little bit, and I've left myself a little bit of an out. Not that I need that customer base, but something I've come to realize, for instance, in my business is one of the most valuable assets I have, besides what we can produce at the shop, is the leads that we generate. And the value that can mean to a designer that wants to be integrated with us in any way, just in our proximity. The amount of sales opportunities that come from just being integrated with us, it's worth a lot of money if you really think about it.
Absolutely, it is, yeah.
So we've kind of changed up a few things. If it's say a big contractor walked in, somebody that wants to be, that it's likely going to be an ongoing type customer, where I'd have the ability to, sit down with, say, Jenny, and like, hey, okay, so you're making the sale. Like, I'm not making the sale. You're going to do the design stuff, but maybe we profit share this thing in a different format where maybe I take care of the install drawings and handle some of the, warranty stuff that might come up, or install questions, those kind of things where, it's a reduced workload for her, an increased workload for me, but it's calculated, where, you're making a little bit more, I guess, on some of those ongoing projects. Cause I feel like those have the most value that way, because if that's the only concern that a person would probably have, was, over in my case, a period of 4.5, almost 5 years. I mean, you've referred away a lot of your base. Some of her customers were my customers, at one point. And, if things are soured, which, we tried to put in things in position, to keep that from happening.
Yeah, of course.
It's like, what do you do? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
But,
interesting. I'm guessing that your shop drawings were always good, but do you feel like that decision to not install made that even more important, to have all those ducks in a row?
Yep.
Is that why your drawings are so good now? Was it like you were forced to, or were you always that way?
I was always kind of picky. Even when I was a trim carpenter, I would draw up stuff and sketch up just to get my brain wrapped around it, that kind of thing. And I still today, even when I'm drawing cabinets or even checking one of the designer's plans, I still look at it from an installer's perspective or a trim carpenter's perspective. I try and add notes that, an installer would appreciate, those kind of things if I'm making install drawings. And I treat it the same way with the guys at the shop too. Try and note things as best as possible. But, a normal job for us, that job might be cut listed for a month before it gets cut. So kind of the driving force between, good notes and that kind of thing is, we all know once you finish kind of drawing a project and you moved on to the next one, you're going to forget about a lot of those details. Like,
all of them. It's almost impossible to remember any of it.
Yeah. Yep. So I always try and, I always tell Nate this too, like, write your notes in a way, it doesn't have to be a book, but write it so you can understand it a month from now, or even 6 months from now.
Gosh, that is so important. That is still something I suck at now. I look back at 3-day-old notes and it takes me a minute to gosh, I should be better at that too. It's hard. It's hard to be though, because at the moment you're like, oh, this is a big deal. I'll remember this. So you write a little something, and it's like, man, it's gone so fast.
My goal is to have the shop not call me about anything when a job gets out there.
Yep,
and that's my goal. And most jobs generally go that direction, but I try to give them all the tools that they need.
Do you feel like your Waukee West subsidiary is doing a good job at that?
Hey, he's improving. He's seeing it, man. I've been hearing that he's turned down a few install jobs and everything. I'm like, oh boy, you're turning the corner.
Hopefully that continues.
With that shop with his now, I think he's seeing that, he starts seeing 5-6 jobs all going at the same time.
Yep.
That's going to warm him up pretty quick.
Yep.
I
sure hope so.
Like, maybe I don't need to be installing a baluster or a handrail today.
Yep. I hope
that's
you're right.
A killer too.
It is. Oh yeah.
Yep.
Speaking of Jeff, our friend Jeff Bellows, I promise this was not planned, but let's talk about component ordering. ordering doors and drawer boxes. You made a comment to a Facebook post somewhere, and I'm summarizing it, but it basically was in response to somebody talking about outsourcing. You said something along the lines of, "Who am I to think I can make a better or more cost-effective door or drawer than a company who spent millions of dollars into specializing this one task?" Basically,
Right. Right.
which is so true. Like, I love that sentiment. I share that sentiment. Did you outsource from the beginning? That was always the plan. Was the plan ever to get away from it, or that you knew you were going to build a business around buying as many
In the
components as made sense?
in the early days, I mean, I've dovetailed a number of drawer boxes and built doors. I've had the shaper cutters and router sets and that kind of stuff. And the way I looked at it is kind of how I put it. I look at my drawer box shop up there. I mean, there was a time where I ordered from Decorative Specialties and Walls Craft. I mean, you look at these guys' setups and it's like, and the quality is so consistent, and it's just a nice standard order, that you can place. I just kind of figured out early on that it made a lot more sense to take advantage of being able to just order doors, drawer boxes, that kind of thing. I've also made the joke too. It's like I've never thought to myself, hey, it'd be great if we could make our own hinges and guides. I should probably buy all the equipment to do that too. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, I look at my shop now and I hate the fact that there's, not a lot of carpentry skill that's required anymore out there. I mean, we essentially cut
but
parts,
it's business.
assemble it, and finish it. Yep. So just tends to work out a lot better for us. You got to be a little more organized. You can't wait until the day you need to ship to order doors. But
that was going to be my next question is, it seems like you've been an organized guy for the most part, and I'm sure that helps with outsourcing. If you were a shop that wasn't currently outsourcing, how would you, I mean, you're so used to things just being the day of or the day before. I mean, is it really just as simple as start to do things a couple weeks ahead of time, telling customers like lead times that are realistic? Like,
yep. I mean,
what am I missing for somebody to start to kind of change how they do that?
Well, my big thing would be, I'm assuming maybe they're doing their own measurements on a project. My first suggestion would be is like, you're drawing that shop plan within a few days after you've done your measurements. I mean, don't even schedule the measure if you can't dedicate, the next day or two to get that shop plan done, even if you aren't going to cut it. I mean, right away, at least get all your order sheets done, get all of that stuff knocked out. It's all fresh in your brain. I mean, just get it done and then get your stuff ordered. If you're on that schedule, even if you're ordering, I mean, most of the vendors we work with, I can't think of a vendor right now that's past 2 weeks, to get doors or drawer boxes in. It's pretty typical that it's a couple weeks. I mean, and, using that math, I mean, you're only 15 days out to having everything landed in your shop. I don't know depending on how fast you build stuff, but I mean, we can put stuff together in less than a week most of the time. And I could almost get by telling somebody 3.5 weeks. I can have you cabinets, if it required ordered parts and pieces. And then I mean, on the topic of vendors too, as far as places to order, you don't always have to look at, how do you want to say it? The big ones, the big boys, Conestoga and Walls Craft and all those. I mean, granted, they offer a lot of options, but I would encourage you to actually, look locally or, get on Phil's app and look for other places that are close to you, because some of those shops are set up. I've got a guy up in Ankeny. That's all he does is just make doors. I mean, I pretty much just told him, stop making cabinets, build doors. You're going to be my favorite guy to go to. And he's, he can provide me 15 doors. I can't get, French mitered doors from him or miter doors or anything like that. I got to go, turn to Walls Craft, but like most of our stuff comes from him. And 2 weeks, they're in my shop, and then my drawer box guy is an hour away. Sometimes these vendors are around you. You don't even know they're there. Yep. Like you need to 100%. Ask
There's so many more of them out there than you would ever imagine. Basically every reasonably major metro has several, small guys somewhere.
Yep. You just got to do
that's a good point.
You got to do some digging. And the best part is you build a relationship with them. I mean, we always tell people we try and source as much as we can locally. I mean, we really do. But like my drawer box guy, I mean, Scott, I mean,
Do you want to shout him
there's
out, or are you worried about blowing him up?
Scott. No. Scott Runyon, man, he's awesome. Wooden Concepts out of Boone. He ships all over the place, but we've been buying drawers from him forever now at this point. But there's been times where because he delivers to our area he drives down on Fridays because he's got a number of large shops down here, and that's when he drops everything off. And there's been times I've called on a Thursday afternoon. Hey, dude, he will knock that box out. Done. Finished.
That's a big deal.
Like, oh man, I'm gonna tell you what. I mean, and he's an awesome dude, and it's nice to have those relationships too, because you can count on them. They got your back because they're local too, that kind of thing. So I would say definitely search your local area before you start going to the big ones. There might be
a big incentive to help you out in a jam, to keep your business, keep you happy.
Absolutely, those relationships mean them, and a source of leads again. Scott sent us work. Kyle sent us work. Yep. And becomes a two-way street, with those type of relationships. So
yep. Nice. Before we started the recording, you were talking about burning the candle on both ends, moving showrooms, all of that stuff. Over the course of your career, how have you handled work-life balance, family life, deciding to I knew you were going to say that. I'm in the same boat, and I'm just curious what your thoughts are on all of that. Are you happy with your decision to do what you've done, grow what you've grown? Would you do anything differently? What
I think if there was anything I could do different, I would have not kept all the secrets to myself, during those early years. Like, I wish I had somebody that was working right alongside me there with that. Would have made a big difference. But as far as work-life balance, I mean, my goodness gracious. I mean, we're trying to fill the hole right now with vacations. The last probably 2 or 3 years, I've vacationed way more than I have ever vacationed. And so that's been like, we make it up in bunches, but like, we got back from seeing my brother last weekend in Idaho, and I've seen my wife maybe, I don't know, an hour and a half, 2 hours, phone calls regularly, obviously, but you're at work, you come home and eat, and then you go back. And like right now with the showroom and stuff, I'm like, I go and put my tool bags on, and I'm helping frame walls and chalk lines and the whole thing. And then, this weekend, I literally worked all day Saturday and Sunday to knock out 2 shop plans and a big commercial submittal that had to be in. And that, I mean, it was like all my brain could do was to get that stuff done, because that was a big effort, 2 big projects plus a big funeral home worth of millwork drawings and stuff. So it was a killer for sure. But speaking of my wife, I mean, it's been this way for a long time, and she's used to it, and we've got our ways of having quality time, I guess, if that makes any sense. But she knows the deal, I guess, is what it comes down to. But
yeah, it wasn't a surprise, right? You've been that way for 20 the whole time, basically.
Yep. I mean, it's just, it's hard to say. I always got too many things going on, and she always asks that question because, when are you not going to be busy? And I always look at it like, I feel like in my mind, like the way I convince myself is like, babe, I'm building a business that is going to operate and run itself, or I sell it, or whatever the case is. But this is, I don't have time for golf. I don't have time for owning a boat. This is what I do. I'm not hanging out at the bar. I'm not, being a goofball by any means, but,
I know what you mean.
And she sees the benefits of it too. She doesn't have to work all the time. So she's a couple days a week, and she gets a lot of time to herself and helps out with the house and all that good stuff. So
yeah, that's good.
Works out well for us.
Well, if you ever come up with a work-life balance tip, let me know. I could use one as well.
Yeah.
You mentioned building something and that. What do you think the long-term vision is? What are you building towards?
I'm still trying to, honestly, Nick, try to figure that out. All these years of being self-employed, it isn't like your retirement account is exactly where you just really wish it was if you were just working at, insurance company all your life, or some union job, or whatever the case is. And so part of me is like, I gotta make sure that this thing is able to operate. And that's part of the reason, that was the intention of going towards the manufacturing only, because I figured in my mind, this takes, it's contained to manufacturing, right? So you build up these relationships with as many people you can in your area, and you've got this ongoing chain of work that would be present for you. So, does the guy sell the business? Does he, create an ESOP? I'm trying to figure all this stuff out. I mean, we all know how cabinet sales or cabinet shop sales go. I mean, it's not worth much more than the equipment that's in it. And that's usually at garage
Well,
sale prices sometimes, but
but I will say though, that is true, but that's usually the case because the owner hasn't built in systems and have the right people in the right places. And you've done that and are doing that and continuing to do that. So I
yep.
think you're right. Most 8-person shops aren't worth anything, really, at the end of the day. I feel like yours is different, though. I feel like you're not that far away from, truly removing yourself, right? You could conceivably get there in a couple of years, right? Don't you think?
Yeah. Well, like if I had if I could copy like Nate, for instance, and then give him a quick, higher education on, bidding commercial projects and just how to get his mind, into, uh, catching all the little details. I mean, I could almost just focus on meeting new customers, or going out and building more relationships, that kind of thing, which is really what I need to be doing. Uh, I've got a lot more, they know of us, but they don't know that we can help them
Yep.
out, you know,
Yep.
because we're not their competition is what
Right.
it comes down to. But
Yep. Yeah, it's hard to get out there and grow something when you feel like the back end isn't perfect
right,
yet.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah. And I've got
Um,
other plans, I mean, not other plans, I should say, but, we've talked, even on the Mosaic side. I mean, the guy's been doing this for the last 10 years at this point. Is there an aspect down the road where, I, either with products or training or something, just as a little side gig, I guess.
mhm.
But so right now the
Well,
shop and everything I do don't have any time for that stuff. So
yeah, especially putting tool bags on and
yeah.
jeepers, man.
Yep.
How about machine wise? You run an SEM, an older SEM router, and a bander too, right?
Yep.
Is that also an SEM? Okay.
Yep. It is.
Um, when it comes time to upgrade, what do you think you'll do, both in terms of footprint, output, and what machines have you seen lately that interest you?
Well, I'll be honest with you. The BSC lineup's awesome. That AS model has had my number for a bit. I'm forgetting, was it the X100 or X200 SCM, which is kind of like the same thing as the AS, I think. I'm intrigued by the auto loading and offload. I know there's some math that goes into that to, really determine if it's really worth
See
it.
if it's worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I've had I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm not a cheap butt, but I literally took like 2 years to decide what CNC to get, and that was after going through all of them: Laguna, Shop, Sabre, the works. I eventually just settled on a good used industrial machine is what it came down to. I wasn't brand specific at that time. This one popped up and it had the hours on it that I was looking for. And honestly, if I needed to upgrade again, I mean, part of me almost, do I go find another used one? Maybe a little
Well,
younger.
it's certainly worked out the first time around. I mean, how
It
long have
did.
you had that machine?
We've had that since 2017.
Wow.
Yep.
8 years strong with almost no major issues.
We've put some cash into it, but and that's part of the reason why I'm just kind of treating it like a used car at this point. It's like it's fixable. We upgraded the computer. I'm current on all that stuff, but even if the spindle went out tomorrow, knock on wood, but
Yeah, no kidding.
I'm just gonna order another one and be done with it. At this point, it's paid off. I just
Yep, doesn't owe you anything at this
It
point.
doesn't owe me anything at this point, and it's not worth nothing. I mean, it's worth nothing on a trade-in. I mean, it's like
Nothing.
scrap value. So I'm just going to run it in the ground and, some of these machines are available pretty quick now too, even if it's decided to go new, and that's also just giving me time to kind of think about what I want to ultimately do with the company as time goes on too. Maybe just run this thing. I mean, it's still going. It works great. I mean, we just don't have any major issues. And let's say it's 2-3 years down the road, I decide to get into something new. Maybe that's time to make the investment as you're, kind of heading into the twilight of your career, setting up that next guy that may buy or you sell to the employees, they got a good set of equipment, but
Yep. Make it a little more enticing for them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Exactly.
Nice.
But
yeah, that Rover AS that Adam Underwood ended up with is so sick.
Yeah. And I've had some great conversations with him, and he's really seeing, I mean, there's some stuff that he gets into where that loader makes a big difference.
Man,
we did times.
Did you see his, he does this project for, God, I'm going to forget what it's for, but it's basically just like 9,000 circles, it's like, where does that job even come from? But they were able to do that in like no time. It's crazy.
I know. I mean, if loading sheets on the machine, I mean, just the time, the turnover time is what makes sense. The biggest thing in my head, even just the unloading is probably a big gainer.
Huge.
And then
more so than loading for sure. The unload is the critical piece to that for sure.
And then the faster cycle times. I mean, like at our shop, I'm trying to think, like our best day, 8-hour shift, 50 sheets. I mean, I'd love to say it's more than that, but honestly, and you're busting butt. Just labeling parts, pulling stuff off, trying to cycle through to the next sheet, as quickly as possible. I mean, the idea of an offload where, it's going to push those parts off. You can blow off your spoil board, drop your sheet on, get it running on that sheet, then deal with your parts. There's so many cool things in our world too, in this industry. I mean, I was just talking to a guy yesterday that they've got a store coming in next week, WinStore, Bessie.
Nice.
And, I mean, those things are amazing. I mean, you start looking at that, it's like, you want to set up a shop. That's what you need to do.
That's the way to do it for sure.
Yep.
If you can support that.
Yeah. But you gotta have some volume, get to that point.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Quite a bit.
And the software on the front end to drive it, Unfortunately,
there's a lot of aspects to it.
Yeah. Mosaic's not capable yet, unfortunately, but I'm sure that day will come.
Yeah.
Sweet, man. This was awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining. Always good to chat.
Well, I got to ask, how are tool sales going?
Really, really good. Really good. We're, I would say after IWF in Atlanta, about a month later, saw a pretty big uptick, and it just hasn't gone back down. So
it's awesome.
It's been cool. And honestly, I'll say for as fast as we've grown, we just haven't been that many issues. Very minor things. I'm just waiting for one major thing to break here, and I just hasn't happened yet. Not going. So
you guys, you've done well. I'm proud of you for that. I think it's awesome what you've done.
You,
I think it's pretty awesome stuff, man. That's for sure.
Thank you. Well, I feel the same way about you too. I know you're in it every day, and you don't feel like what you do is maybe that special. But having been in thousands of small shops that are 8 guys or under, you are as organized and put together as any of them. And I mean that. Like, I'm not joking.
I'll be darned.
So you should feel good about that.
It's good to know, I guess. So
it doesn't help your Saturday and Sunday nights.
It does not. It does not. No, it does not. Yeah. No.
Well, sounds good, man. We'll have to do this again in a year or two.
Yeah.
I want you to get some time with version 14 of Mosaic, and we'll come back and do maybe a recap, because I know you're basically kind of starting over, right?
Yeah. I've got probably a month left to go. I mean, I'm in it almost every day. I've just got it isolated where I'm working on it. But it's, in my opinion, it's best just to hit the refresh button, you know, and
because of your time in Mosaic, because of how much time you're basically 10 years of building to where you are now.
It's just
if you were a newer user, probably not. I'm guessing you wouldn't say the same thing.
No, I wouldn't say the same thing in that case, but I'll be honest with you. It's been interesting to start over in 14 as a new user, but somebody that has, I'm not going to say expert level, but close. I've been doing it for a long time.
Expert level, man. You're a top 1%er for sure.
Yeah, I'm geeking out on all of that. So it's kind of cool because, like, even the way I've got it set up right now, it's just so clean. It's so easy to pop in there, and I'm kind of re-implementing some of the organization I wish I could have done, but you just don't. When you have all those jobs and all those materials and templates, it's like, where do I even start? This is just going to be traumatic, and to have a fresh start, 14 is like the perfect place to do it because of the changes. But
I'm sure your organizational OCD loves the fresh start on some of that stuff.
Yeah, I just posted out my the texture folder. Some guy was asking for some textures or something.
I just saw that. My God, man.
Grant's like, goodness gracious. Like, I just started building it. It got long, and materials are much shorter now, but my textures are. But it does take some rethinking, though, on how to handle materials.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, we'll kind of end on this one. Speaking of Grant, the Mosaic Facebook group that you and I took over in July of 21?
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound right? 4 years ago?
Yep.
What makes you so willing to share everything? Like, you've shared your multi-print templates and textures and cabinets and SOPs, basically everything short of your library, right? What makes you so willing to do that for the community?
Well, I mean, I think it speaks to the user base as a whole. At least I can't obviously speak for everyone, but most Mosaic users that are in it, they love helping answer questions. They love sharing information, that kind of thing. And I don't let everything out the door just because I know I've got so much time, in them, or it'd be impossible to really share it technically too. But things like that, if I can help another shop, just have a easier starting point, I want to do it. And and it's more than just me that does that stuff. You used to do that quite a bit too, just sharing knowledge. And I think that's what makes the group honestly really, really special, is that, that people are willing to share their hard work, the fruits of their hard work, or they figure something out and
for sure
they get it out there, that kind of thing. But yeah, I'm working on a video series for multi-print, just workflow, just to help guys kind of do that. And my old SOP that still gets passed around from time to time, I've got that fully updated. I still haven't sent that out, but I think there's shops that, will benefit from that too. And that's something I'll just
How many
share.
pages is that thing now?
Well, I'm actually doing it as a video series on it. So that'll be that'll be a good one. I mean, the actual physical document is I think it's 6 pages is what it is, but it's easy to follow. It's not like it's but it's just meant to kind of catch everything, workflow wise. But I just like to tackle Mosaic in a kind of a 1, 2, 3, 4 step plan.
Yep.
Eliminates mistakes.
I think that's important, because I think one of the things in there, if I remember correctly, is when you're editing a cabinet, don't stop until you're done.
Correct.
Don't
Number
stop
one rule.
halfway. You're never coming back, right?
Nope.
You're going to say you're coming back. You're not coming back.
Yep. You're going to forget about it. Yep. You always want to complete things as you go. And that's part of it. I mean, that's what I will say this. That's what I love about 14, at least with the CAD tools, is now we have this ability to annotate as you're going. And that's a big one. That has been a helpful thing. So
that reminds me of from my conversation with Bobo. He basically said multitasking doesn't exist, right? You're either on task or you're distracted. And I was like, huh. Well, I'm pretty distracted then, because I feel like I'm multitasking well sometimes, but he's kind of right about that. I've been thinking about that one a lot more.
I like that interview. That was a good one. He had a lot of good points.
Good stuff, for sure.
Yep. A lot of good points.
Yeah. Well, awesome, Jason. I should let you go,
buddy.
man. I know you got your tool bags to throw on and go frame a wall somewhere. So
take it easy, man. We'll see you
later, man. See ya.
You bet.